I recently uncovered a painful truth that shattered my world: my 5-year-old son is not biologically mine. The revelation came as a devastating blow after 6 years of marriage and 9 years in total with my wife. Learning that she had cheated on me and become pregnant by another man left me feeling deeply hurt and betrayed. This all started 2 weeks ago when I began to have doubts about my son's paternity. Despite raising him as my own, I noticed that he bore little resemblance to me. After much inner turmoil, I decided to take a paternity test without informing my wife. The moment I received the results confirming my worst fears, I was engulfed in a wave of anger and heartbreak. When I confronted my wife, I was overwhelmed with emotions and lashed out at her, calling her a multitude of names in my anger. She responded with tears, explaining that she had hidden the truth in an attempt to protect our family. Her justification was that she wanted to preserve the happiness we had created together. As she sobbed, she recounted a particularly nasty argument we had a while back, which she said had driven her to seek comfort in the arms of another man. It had been a one-time mistake, and she insisted that she had been faithful ever since. She admitted she had doubts about my paternity but never sought a test herself, believing it would be better for our family to remain intact. In her mind, choosing to keep our son and not reveal the truth was a way to maintain the peace and happiness we shared. As I listened, the hurt deepened. I could hardly comprehend how she could prioritize our family's facade over the truth. In that moment of confrontation, I made the heart-wrenching decision to divorce her. I felt I could no longer be part of our son's life, which added another layer of pain. My wife begged me not to break up our family, claiming that I had been a wonderful father and should forgive her. She pleaded with me, emphasizing that DNA should not define my love or commitment. It was heart-wrenching to see her so distressed, but I felt my decision was final. After initially deciding to keep the situation private, my anger swelled. I felt compelled to share my truth with my family. When I finally did, the reactions were swift and intense. My wife's parents were furious and cut all ties with her, declaring they wanted nothing to do with their daughter. My sister, who had always been my confidant, exploded with anger, cursing out my soon-to-be ex-wife for her betrayal. However, not everyone was on my side. My sister-in-law and other family members chastised me for airing our dirty laundry, arguing that I had humiliated my wife and should have handled things privately. The situation escalated further when my sister called me, demanding that I take my wife back and be a father to our son. I coldly responded that I no longer considered him my son. This provoked her, leading to a heated exchange where she called me weak and pathetic. She accused me of being the reason my wife strayed in the first place. Frustrated, I hung up and reached out to her husband instead, warning him to consider paternity testing for their child. He apologized for his wife's actions and ended the call. As I navigated the fallout, I was overwhelmed by the public reaction. When I posted about my situation, I was shocked to find over 10,000 comments, each filled with opinions and advice. Many people reached out to check on me, which I appreciated, but I was puzzled by some of the accusations against me. Some labeled me a misogynist, claiming I deserved to be cheated on. I struggled to understand this perspective. If the roles were reversed, wouldn't they be outraged if their partner had a child outside the marriage? The decision to take the paternity test was not one I made lightly. My sister, my closest confidant, had urged me to do it multiple times. I had brushed off her concerns, never once suspecting my wife could betray me like this. She had always looked out for me, and when she insisted I test, it made me reconsider my doubts. I'm grateful for her encouragement. The pain of discovering my wife's infidelity hit me like a ton of bricks. I had truly loved our son, but every time I looked at him, I was reminded of my wife's betrayal, intensifying my emotional struggle. After reading countless comments, I came to realize that my son, like me, was a victim of this situation. I didn't want to cut him off completely, fearing it would mentally scar him. I decided to reach out to my wife and let her know I wanted to see our son. When I called, she picked up immediately, her voice filled with relief as she expressed her gratitude for my decision to come over. Before I went, I asked if the woman involved in the affair would be present. My anger flared again at the thought of her being around, and I warned my wife that if she tried to speak to me, I would confront her. She assured me that the other woman would not be there. When I arrived to see my son, the moment he saw me, his face lit up with joy. He ran to me with arms wide open and embraced me tightly. In that moment, despite the chaos swirling around us, I felt a flicker of warmth and connection. It was a complex mix of love and heartache, a moment that reminded me of the importance of navigating this situation with care for both of our emotions. I knew I had to find a way to balance my feelings of betrayal with my responsibility as a father, no matter the circumstances. When I returned home, my son greeted me with a mixture of confusion and worry etched on his face. "Where were you for so long?" he asked, his small voice tinged with uncertainty. I knelt down and picked him up, cradling him in my arms as I tried to ease his anxiety. I was working, I explained gently, hoping to comfort him. For the next hour, we played together, lost in the joy of simple games and laughter. I cherished those moments, but I knew I had to have a difficult conversation with him. Eventually, I took a deep breath and prepared to explain. I'm going to be away sometimes, I said softly, but I promise I'll visit you and keep in touch. He didn't take the news well, his face fell, and I could see the disappointment in his eyes. To lift his spirits, I decided to make a promise. I'll have a very special surprise for your birthday, I said, trying to sound cheerful. His interest piqued, but the truth was, I had no idea what I was going to do for him. His birthday was still a few months away in December, but I felt a flicker of determination that I would figure something out. After he ran outside to play with his friends, I found myself alone with my wife. The moment she saw me, she rushed over, enveloping me in a tight embrace, her body shaking with sobs. Please don't leave me, she pleaded, her voice muffled against my shoulder. I can't do this without you. Don't give up on our son or on me over a mistake. Her words struck me like a bolt of lightning, igniting a fire of rage within me. A mistake? I shouted, pulling away to look her in the eyes. You almost killed our child. You wanted to abort him. How can you call that a mistake? She had indeed considered it, but ultimately chose to keep the baby because I had been happy. I was furious that she had even entertained the thought in the first place, and my heart felt heavy with the weight of betrayal. You've destroyed me, I continued, my voice rising. And you've destroyed our son. When he finds out the truth, he won't love you as much as he does now. I felt a wave of bitterness wash over me as memories flooded my mind, memories of intimacy and trust that now felt like a cruel joke. I came inside you every single night, and yet a random man comes along just once, and you end up pregnant? We both know I am not infertile. In a fit of anger, I threatened her, saying I wanted to expose her to everyone we knew. I'll tell your friends' friends, the whole neighborhood. I'll let every single one of your family members know, even the ones living in China. The thought of revealing her secret consumed me. They deserve to know the truth about what you've done. This isn't just about you, it's about our child and the lies you've built around him. As I raged on, I saw the fear and regret in her eyes. She started to cry, shaking at the prospect of our son being affected by the fallout of my fury. I can't lose you, she said, desperation coloring her tone. You're the love of my life. I'll wait for you to calm down. I'll fight for us, for our family. I'll give you as many kids as you want, and I'll even take a paternity test if that's what it takes. She leaned in, kissing my face with desperation, as if trying to erase the pain with her affection. But I pushed her away, my heart hardened. You're delusional, I replied coldly. You act as if you've just scratched my car or spilled a drink on the floor. I could forgive almost anything else, but this? This is a betrayal that runs too deep. You've betrayed not just me but our child as well. In that moment, I felt an urge to lash out, and I insulted her sister, suggesting she needed professional help for her behavior, as it seemed to me she was losing her grip on reality. Before she could say anything further, I turned and stormed out, wanting her to feel the full weight of my anger and betrayal. Once outside, I sent her a text message. I'll be visiting our son frequently, but I want you to understand that I'm focused solely on him now. Think about him and be a good mother? Now, I find myself living with my sister, who has been a source of unwavering support. She holds me tightly, comforting me until I manage to calm down, even if it takes hours. The thought of starting divorce proceedings looms in my mind. As a father, I know I have a moral obligation to remain in my son's life, even amid this chaos. Still, my feelings towards my wife and her sister are filled with disdain. It gnaws at me to think that such behavior might run in their blood.